So I'm happy to invite you and welcome you to our first DesignOps introduction meetup organized by Friends of Figma. We have some interesting things today, and the goal for today's meetup was to introduce DesignOps as a discipline to others, where they will able to understand it more and where they will able to learn about it as well. Let's welcome our first speakers. Patricia, would you like to introduce yourself to the community?
Thank you for having Farid. Always great to be here and work together. I lead the international DesignOps practice at Tide, which is a scale-ups organization, fintech company based in London and going global. So my role is to increase efficiency and support the design teams to grow, scale, be productive, and be happy.
Great. Dominic, would you like to introduce yourself to the community as well?
Yeah, I'm Dominic Ward. I lead design operations at Atlassian. Similarly, we are focused on really amplifying and enabling the value of design. And so that really means around helping our teams, well, really, essentially. So refining how we get work done, defining how we work together, and then shaping and growing our experience design org. And so I'm actually really excited for this conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, we see that a lot of people are starting to add more stickers to the Figma file, so please welcome to do that. And we have Z on the call. Z, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Z, and I'm the design ops lead at Cloudflare. My background is really I came from a practice lead side. I was a designer for the longest time of my life. But then similar to a lot of folks, we've been doing design and then start to see a lot of, organizational level of challenge and everything. We can apply all the skills as a designer in the organization, structures and everything. That's how I transition into a design ops person. I worked for the big companies before, but now I'm working with a small team, about 20 designers. So a lot of the perspective I'm bringing is really the design ops of one in this kind of a scale.
Thank you, Z. So, and my name is Farid Sabitov. I'm Figma DesignOps community advocate. So I'm happy to be with all of you today. I see a lot of people are interacting with our FigJam file, so please do that. It becomes more collaborative. So we would like to speak with all of you as well. So I will just quickly remind our code of conduct. Zero tolerance for harassment, respecting others, be honest and transparent, no confidential information, and not a marketing channel. So this is our code of Friends of Figma code of conduct. So please be aware of that. So please join our Figma file. I provided the link in the goal for today is to introduce you to DesignOps. So we prepared a couple interesting topics, our definitions of DesignOps, the focus areas, approach, engagement models, and the skills. Skill set is the large topic, but we would like to start that as an introduction. And I believe we will do that on the next sessions as well. And we will make it open source, so everyone will be able to contribute and standardize the DesignOps as a discipline. So I would like to start with the first chapter, with the first topic. So the definition of DesignOps. So here, as you will able to find a couple definitions from other DesignOps practitioners from all around the world. Any of our speakers, would you like to start and tell your definition of DesignOps, how you see DesignOps as a discipline?
Basically, my background is linguistics. So for me, it's all about understanding the words that we are using and how we combine them. So it's there's a clear definition for me. So I don't even get into the debate what is design. So let's just nicely assume that we agree, for instance, on Steve Jobs' definition that design is not just what it looks like, but design is how it works. But then there's this other word, which is fascinating. What is operation? So if you look at the business dictionary, there's a really nice definition of operations that means transforming resources, transforming data, transforming the existent state, the current state, into a desired result that creates value and delivers value to the customers. So design ops, for me, it's literally the transformation and a transformative act of taking what is the current state of the design practice, processes, ways of working, tools, spending, engagement models, OpMax, you name it, and transforming to make sure that we give value to our designers, to our business, and to our customers ultimately, and to the business in general. So I would say design ops is literally a transformative discipline and function within the organization that connects the design practice to the business to create value by improving the status quo.
Thank you, Patricia. We have another definition from Dominic. Dominic, would you like to share it?
Yeah, I mean, this is also kind of a butchered and adjusted Dave Maloof quote that I like to use, which is let designers focus on design, let design managers focus on managing and supporting their designers and their work, and then let design operations focus on everything else. And that's a big bucket, right? There are so many things that could fall into the scope of design operations. And so the everything else is usually dependent on what the needs of the organization are. But similarly, it's about like how teams work, how orgs work, how orgs grow. And I spent many years in business operations and on the operational side of innovation design agency, so at FROG. And so which is already in a kind of operations driven way of doing design. So from my perspective, design isn't just what you're doing, but it's how you're doing it. And so I look at design operations as being designing design teams. And so I think it's great when designers and design practitioners are the ones who are leading design operations. The pain point is when the tax is on them, right? Because design ops gets done regardless of whether or not you have a design ops team and function. And so from a team perspective, how do you, to Patricia's point, like make it transformational? Like design is in and of itself a transformational function. Mm-hmm. And so design operations is as well.
Thank you, Dominic. I really like your thoughts around like the way like it's more about how people are working with each other. So thank you for sharing that. It's really exciting. So Z, would you like to like give your thoughts on that based on the things that we spoke about, like your feedback?
So from my perspective, again, coming from working as a design ops one, for me, design ops is really about people. It's about the designers. It's about the design leaders, and it's about the people outside the design team. It's really about the people. Our designers tend to say design op. The job for design op is really to support our designers and design leadership to do their job, and that is in a way, my perspective, to help them to hone their skill, to help them to organize, to help them to do their job better, faster, more efficiently. So that it's really my take on the design ops perspective.
Thank you. So yeah, and like I would like to share like my view on like design ops, but I totally agree with everyone's definitions. So design ops is focused on the way how design teams are working inside and collaborating with others, focusing on people and products by leveraging design impact enablers, design accelerators, and knowledge lenders to amplify design's impact at scale. So there are a couple interesting parts here. Like we are always speaking about the way how things are done. So if we're speaking about design system, we are not creating a design system, but we are thinking about the way how design and code is connected and etc. It's not only about designers, but also how designers are collaborating with others. So it's important to make sure that if we are speaking about collaboration of designers and product managers, that we have the right user research activities and we have the right research database to scale all the knowledge for the whole company. So if you will have any questions, please add your thoughts here as well. That will be great. So another part is the focus areas. Patricia, would you like to start? What do you think about the focus areas? What DesignOps needs to focus on?
Well, it depends on your team. It depends on your organization. It depends on your pain. So I recently came to a different model and a triangle, so where I see 3 types of initiatives and 3 pillars. So one is probably the business operation. It may sound less appealing, but it's all that goes around planning the budget. It's all about planning the resources. It's all about taking care of all those admin work that enables the designers to do a great work. So it's partnering with vendors. I hate calling Figma or any other vendors a vendor. For me, they're an amazing partner because I can lead great initiatives and great training and great work with them. So it's taking care of them. It's taking care about what is the return of investment that we are doing in the tools, and how do we make sure we have the right people, the right resources, we sequence the resources. So everything that goes around this business operations, if you want, that actually looks at design. And this is really, really important, because when you go in organizations, you will find out that in many cases, the person that is looking for tools licenses has no clue what the tools does, who needs a license, why, and when. So there are a lot of endemic inefficiencies in a lot of teams and organizations, because unless someone is embedded with the function and the practice, no one really knows what Figma does, what another tool does, because they don't use it. They're admin people, so we support to spend better. The second pillar, it's the workflow operation. It's the end-to-end design processes. So how long does it take to deliver something? What are the bottlenecks? What are the collaborations? As Dominic was saying, it's all about how we work with our cross-functional partners. Design, it's a cross-functional discipline. So we need to make sure that we operate and collaborate with all our partners in the right way. We have the right processes to talk to them. We have the right design standards. We have the processes. We have a good knowledge management, asset management. All the design assets are actually available. The design system is up and running and is delivering efficiency. So everything that goes around how designers work, it's what I call workflow operation. And then there's people operations. So as Z was saying, DesignOps, it's a lot around people. It's really about people. So what is a career path definition? You join a company, and of course you join because you want to grow, because you want to develop new skills, because you want to grow and build a career. How you do that? So the skill matrix, what are the development programs and the training? What is the team culture? How we share knowledge and experiences, and how we build a culture. So all these 3 elements, the business operation, the workflow operation, and the people operation, are all finalized to create and enable designers and design teams to be the best they can, to have the best job, the best opportunity, and the biggest fun. I mean, life is too short to waste it in a job you don't enjoy or with people you don't like, so, or in a wrong culture. So for me, it's really kind of finding the balance. And sometimes you focus only on one because you have to focus more on the business operation. Sometimes you have to focus a little bit more on people. It's and the beauty of DesignOps, it's that it's constantly changing, and it's constantly challenging your problem-solving attitude.
Thank you, Pat. Like that's really amazing. Like I also added your one of like your slides from your Medium article, and also I would like to engage others to follow Dominic and Patricia and Z on social media. Patricia is writing a lot of interesting articles on the Medium, so please make sure to follow her as well. Like there's a lot of interesting things that will help you to evolve your DesignOps career.
And please challenge me. I only learn if you ask me a question and make me doubt that I'm saying something that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, probably it doesn't. Tell me so that we can have a good discussion. And really ask question, and we learn only if we question each other.
I really resonate with your systems, and Patricia, I'm kind of a little bit of a fangirl of yours, especially since DesignOps Summit, and I felt like you were just presenting all that was already like in my brain, but much better. And I dropped in what I have kind of drew very, very quickly during a meeting a few months ago, but then I've been using it to really talk about design operations. And my team is called Design Hub, and really meant to be the central place for practices and how our design org and team functions. So we are centered around people, practices, and systems, right? So things that are, and people are programs and frameworks that enable the growth and evolution of design. So how do we cultivate culture, a design culture, especially in a remote first world where we had a very, at Atlassian, we had, an annual event where the entire design team went to Sydney, and we spent a whole week just like cultivating that culture. And we have just across the board way of working where we regularly just, fly to different countries and meet together to make sure our teams, what does that look like in remote when you can't do that? And so I'm sure that many teams felt like, what is design culture? I'm just kind of like with the burnout and all the things, right? So how do we cultivate that? And then how do we think about how designers, design teams, and our overall design org evolves over time? And so how do you go through your career? How do you grow and develop? And how do the needs of the org and the overall business and teams need to change to satisfy the times, right? That kind of misperception that our customers are always the same for whatever reason. We're like, oh, this is our customer. That was your customer 5 years ago. Who are they now, and who are they going to be? We need to think about that as far as our org and our practices. And then how do you get a sense of where your strengths and capabilities are? So Patricia mentioned before, skills mapping and skills matrices. How do you get a sense of where your gaps are, and how do you hire for that? On the practices side, what are our rhythms as an organization? How do we refine our design practices, especially in a remote world? And how do we track and manage in-flight work? We have a different structure as how we manage work at Atlassian. So my design ops team doesn't include any design program managers, which many design ops teams do. Our program management org is focused on the overall delivery of our products and our works. So they work cross-functionally. So, but what does that mean for the design workflow? How do we make sure that that stays on track with that if we're not managing the design work specifically? And then systems is, all the things from design systems and how that connects. Has our tooling actually impact our workflow? So you have your tool stack, but how do you make sure your tools are fit for purpose? What are the templates and frameworks that you can offer teams that then optimize for the time they're spending? Operations as a general function is I've always hated this my entire career, is talked about as like waste reduction. It's like reduce the waste. But it's really about making use of your time, doing the work where the work happens, and making sure that you can make teams efficient, effective, and make sure that the things that you're doing are sustainable. So not that they last forever, but they can evolve over time with and be flexible enough to move with the tides. And so a lot of those like systems and standards need to work with that.
No, I just love that you said that actually you don't have TPMs, because I'm pretty much a fan of this more embedded strategic view. So I don't want to take over, but I would love now or another time to learn more, because it seems a lot of time there's this confusion between DPM and DesignOps, and the fact that you made this statement just made my day. So I just wanted to say it publicly. Thank you.
Yeah. On that note, it's really interesting thought. I saw folks underlining my second part of the definition, which is really calling out what make design ops different than, say, TPM groups, and different from other maybe even DevOps and anything. For me, it's really important. Design ops is really catered for the design maturity of the organization. Especially, I work for the big company, I work for a small company, and the way I do things are totally different. How you adapt to the maturity of the company. It's what the core of the design op, which make us different than TPMs, different than other ops and everything. I work closely with other groups, with the TPM group, but with the DevOps and everything. But design ops focuses on the designers, the people we have. And so I think that kind of talked about how design ops is slightly different than other ops. And that kind of goes to the focus and also about adjustment, adapting everything. For design ops is one, I constantly have to make adjustment. Things grow, the team grow, as the team scale, and it's a constantly readjustment of the focus. I like to think about the focus in the three core circles: about people, about process, and the tooling. But I always tell people, people comes first. We might have a process in place, we might have the tools in place, but the process and tools needs to service the people. And then maybe we don't, and maybe we don't have the process in place, maybe we don't have the right tools yet, but we need to find out what our designers people need, and then based on that needs and adjust what kind of a new process we need to introduce and what kind of tools we need to bring in to make the team more efficient. So we can think, sometimes we think in vertical, sometimes we think horizontally, sometimes we think in pillars, but I like to think everything kind of serves our designers' need, our design leadership's need. And so that there are just so many things design ops needs to do. And as a design ops of one, again, it's a constantly prioritization. What do I do? What do I focus right now? And then what's the next step? And how do I map it out? How design ops actually maps out to the entire design org structure, how the design ops maps out to the roadmap of the product, roadmap and everything. And there's just constantly readjustment, prioritization. So one thing for design ops one, it's the most important skill, I think, is the prioritization, and that is really helpful for me working in this group right now.
Thank you, Z. We have interesting question from Charles. At companies with fewer designers, teams, designers, where DesignOps doesn't yet exist, how should we work with leaders, management to organize teams better? What does DesignOps look like at different scales?
I can talk about design ops of one. How I started is that I actually came to interview for a position as a practice lead on the practice lead side. And I talked with their designers, I talked with the hiring managers and everything. And then from what I gather, I say, well, no, you don't right now need me to be your practice lead. You need an ops person to help you scale. But I came on board as started as helping both sides, a little bit on the practice side, and also start to do a lot of the operation side, and then to start to show really the value of design ops, how design ops actually help the team to perform better, to perform more efficiently. And then also a very important perspective is the team culture, how design ops work can make a happy team. And in return, we deliver better product, everything. And so eventually, I moved into a more full-time design ops person. So also based on the team scale, I'm sure you'll probably have heard about Rachel from Salesforce talked about, the proportion. If you have 1 to 20 designers, you probably only need half to one person, design ops person. Then as the team grow, then you have 50 people, 50 designers, you can look into maybe 2 to 5 design ops person. As the team grow larger, then you have vertical design ops team, horizontal design ops team. It's a slow process, but I believe design ops should grow with the design organization. Again, it's focused on the maturity of your design organization and start to do things, talk about the things that design ops is about, and what design ops can bring value, the business value for the team as well. So I think that's probably the agile, gradual approach to design ops.
Yeah, I actually really loved when Rachel and I think it was Luke presented that, and I think it's a really great for me at the time, being a design ops team 1 in an organization with over 300 designers. It's like, this is out of balance, right? And many people experience that because especially over the, design ops as a titled function has only existed for the last 5 years, right? But design operations as a thing that needs to be done has existed since design was a thing in all the different industries and ways of doing design. But when it took off as a function and more teams started getting added, many organizations were like, oh, I know I need this thing, but I don't know what to do with it. And what you found was design teams of 1 in massive organizations, or just design teams of 1 in general. And the leadership didn't necessarily know how to engage. And so a lot of like early wins are kind of figuring out what is the career ladder look like? How do you mitigate for some of the immediate pain points? And I think one of the things that is really important, and this goes to exactly what Z said around figuring out what the needs of the organizations are, is it's not one size fit all the time. They're kind of like the buckets and the tenants that work and that are you kind of want to have in place, but you can't hit the ground running from day one to do that. You really just need to figure out what are the pain points, what are the immediate needs that need to be solved for, and then how do you expand? And it's hard. Prioritization is really hard. Our design teams know that, our product, our cross-functional teams know that, and it's something to really think about. I should say, I know, Farad, you wrote quick wins. I personally don't believe in quick wins because quick wins oftentimes aren't sustainable and they don't last very long, but it's just a way to say, hey, we did a thing and check the box. So I try to have a healthy balance of that, of we're doing this thing, we're moving the needle, this is what we're working towards. So instead of working towards the shipping and the output, is working towards outcome, or hopefully beyond that, the impact that you're trying to drive for.
Yeah, actually, you are touching on the right point, because being a transformational function in the organization, it's all about change management. I would say more than prioritization, which is for me the, let's say, easy bit, change management. So I saw the question about how you convince CFO and the scale of design ops in different teams. Now, it's how you prove the value of design in the organization and how you prove the value of changing, transforming an existent process, flow, way of working into something that is better. Now, because we live in a culture that talks about being always data-driven, but if you scratch the surface, you will find that sometimes when you look at OKRs and metrics, they are a little bit creative and not necessarily data-driven. So it's all about proving that value. It's all about transforming how we work, transforming how we engage, and what is the role of design. I mean, I'm pretty convinced that design had a huge success thanks to design thinking that actually enable the function to go into the organization and start delivering value. So you can convince the CFO to have design because, hey, there are so many McKinsey studies that actually touch on McKinsey, Deloitte, you name it. I mean, so many books and studies proving that if you have a design practice, basically your revenue, your longevity, your customer base is better. That's great. How you prove that you need design ops? Hey, have you noticed that actually you are paying 500 licenses and you're using 5? Ask the CFO or the design leader, what is the return of investment in your resources? How much time is your team spending in design? I mean, we know because there are so many studies that actually in the knowledge working industry, and design, it's a knowledge working industry, every worker spends maximum 60% of their time on their job, and 40% is on anything else, low added value, not your work. There was a very concerning UK study saying that the average productivity time of a worker is 2.54 2 hours 54 minutes a day. It means that we are productive on average 3 hours. What on earth are designers doing in the other 5? Our role is to prove the value in the inefficiencies, and it's really easy if you start applying the mentality of, hey, it takes too long to deliver, we have too many QA errors, reviews, we are spending on tools we are not using, and we don't have the resources we need, to go to the CFO and just ask for an experiment. Experiment is a magic word that actually drives transformation and change. I can tell you, I got my way every time I use the word experiment, because that's change management. It's not daunting, and it helps the CFO and the leader and decision making to say, well, it's an experiment, it doesn't work, nothing happens. So hope that answered the question about the CFO.
Yeah. I love that word, experiment. I tell everyone everything is experiment. I do the same thing. You know, you don't say, you know, if you say experiment, people are really open to, you know, what you can do. And then, you know, let's try it. Doesn't work out, let's iterate. And then it's an experiment. I love that word too. And also, I think to convince CFO, for me, I spend a lot of time really learning the business language. I think for design ops person, that's also really important. You need to speak the language that your counterpart speaks. If the CFO is about, you know, efficiency is about dollars, it's about, you know, really think about that. If design ops can understand, you know, the financial need of the company, and then you can visualize that, you can say, you know, how, like Perez, you just mentioned that, you know, to say how much time you wasted, why do we need a tool, and then you get the support, why do we need a tool that can speed up the things, and then you can free up your designer to do more, you know, productive things, and then why do we need a design system, you can replicate it 500 times instead of 500 people doing it. So really turn that into business language will help us and visualize that as a designer, and get a designer help you to visualize that part, how you actually can provide business value as a design op and as a design team. So I think that it's also helped me in my journey.
Yeah, I was really being in business operations at a design agency really helped me hone those skills. The analysis piece, saying, okay, this is a type of work that's coming in, this is how we're pitching it, this is how we're constructing these teams, our utilization and all these, and then also being able to say the so what. Like here, it's not just enough to present the data points. Like data points aren't information, right? Data points aren't actionable. It's the insights that come out of that. So like, here's what the numbers are, this is what it means, here's what to do about it. And if you do happen, if you don't, this may happen. And that equips people with the with the information to make a decision or not to. Like there's a lot of like, you know, there's that balance of like, how do you tie what you're doing, not just to the business, but also to the customer? Because at the end of the day, our designers are delivering customer experiences to someone. And for anyone who's worked in a, kind of back of house position, right? Whether it be program management, operations, finance, everything is hunky-dory when things are going right. And then when something goes wrong, it's like, this didn't happen, there's a fire. And then they start to understand the value of that, like that thing that they didn't really notice. And if you can articulate that up front, you can hopefully get ahead of the pain. But sometimes you really have to tie it to the thing that is most dear, right? So speaking the language of the business, tying what you do to how it impacts the business, how it impacts the customer. And that's really something that design as a function needs to do, especially for those organizations where design doesn't have a quote unquote seat at the table, that are engineering driven, that are product driven, that have the perception that like, well, we could just build this and ship it without design. So that tells me that we don't need you, right? Which sure may be true, but if that's your goal, then so what is the actual goal? And similar to all of those other things for researchers as well, it's like, this is what we did, this is what we learned, this is how it impacted here. We would need to get better at telling those stories and connecting the dots.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I hear quite often from designers is, I don't understand how me doing this prototype actually fits in the big company OKR business goals, etc. So it's really an important exercise, and I think that design operations needs to own it, because while the design leader is focused on the product strategy, the service strategy, the how falls on us, and how we connect those dots between telling the designer that prototype fits in that project, that fits in that initiative, that actually ties to that OKR, that goal, that actually delivers, I don't know, a growth in whatever, a revenue, or in PRS or NPS, which is a target and big bold goal of the company. It's something that actually really helps to fill the gap between the business and the design. And this is why DesignOps, it's one of those functions that needs to be positioned at a more strategic level. I wouldn't say at a C-level, but at least a leadership role. Because it needs to influence, it needs to get the buy-in, and it needs to kind of make sure that we are heard and we can deliver the impact.
Yeah, I think the design ops position probably depends, again, the maturity of the company. If the design is at the C level, the design op probably also can be elevated to that level, and everything. And really, again, it's constantly adapting to the maturity of the design practice in the company as well. And back to the story you were talking about, storytelling, I think that's really important too. Designers are very good at doing things, but not very good at really telling that story. I've been trying to push our designers to tell the big story of the small success, how that actually maps into the business value and everything. And I think that's when design ops comes in and provide the value to really facilitate, to push our designers to talk more about why we do these and how we do this and what impact that has. And I think that's really a design ops focus.
I know I don't want us to get stuck on this, but I do want to say that right before this, I had just like a quick breakfast catch up via Zoom with Allison Rand, who is a longtime friend and former colleague at Frog, but she is now holds the most senior design ops role that I've heard of. And so she's Chief Strategy Officer, Design Ops at SAP, which is, C-level, and it has strategy in the title. And I think it's important to say that design operations, yes, it's tactical, but a lot of it is strategic. And so, I'm sorry?
I don't agree. I think the design operation is extremely strategic, because the impact you have, it's on the long term. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not, like you said, on the low-hanging fruit and quick wins. It's
Mhm.
more on a vision of an operation that delivers value in the long term. So, sorry, but
Absolutely.
more
Oh,
strategic.
no, we're on the same page 100%. I 100% agree that it's strategic, but many teams and are structured just to handle the tactical,
Yeah.
because that's where the most pain is. And so I feel like a lot of times design operations teams and functions aren't being utilized to their fullest potential. And in strategy, 100% is where we can really lean in.
Yeah, we're not talking about the skill yet, but I think, really the strategy level, the consultant perspective of design ops helps a lot in my work, especially as a ops of one, right? So I partner with all the design leadership and then mapping out the strategy and everything all the time, and I had that opportunity as well. So I think definitely Dominic and Percy both mentioning that strategy, it's really a big part of the design op, not just the tactical work.
Yeah, I mean, and I see the DPMs doing the tactical one. So for me, the design of sets the vision, the strategy, and kind of the bold statement, the mission, and the goals. But someone needs to execute the initiatives, the projects that actually deliver those results and visions. So I see design ops and DPMs in kind of complementary. Both are necessary, but one is strategic and the other it's more tactical. So this is why I was so excited when Dominic was mentioning that they have more design ops than DPMs, because for me that means a huge focus on design team's vision and operation vision rather than delivering tactical pieces. So
Yeah, I would also like to add regarding the focus areas, we have one focus areas and here we have 3 levels: strategic, tactical, and individuals. And as you can see here, based on the definition that I spoke before, we are focusing on the people and on the product. So as you can see here on the individual level, we have person and craft. On the team level, we have the team itself and the product. And on the strategic level, we have the whole organization. On organization, on people focused, and portfolio on the if we're speaking about product stream. And here on the strategic part, we have market recognition, we have design culture, governance models, knowledge management. This is a huge topic. Design systems, research databases, recognition, and etc. And if we're speaking about the teams, how we could do them, help them, it's more about education, team health, recruiting and staffing, workflows, ceremonies, etc. So also that usually we can start with tactical level, focusing on the product, on the specific teams. But when we see that we have some interesting practices that are working and we already have positive feedback, we can scale that to the whole organization and go to the strategic level. Also here we have a couple questions, but we will come back to them. So the next part is about the approach. So I added our approach where we have it based on the 4 phases, where we have assess, optimize, scale, and automate. On the assess phase, we are trying to understand on specific team level which kind of practices are working, which kind of challenges they are facing with, and etc. Preparing a roadmap to understand what kind of things we need to improve. On optimized level, we are testing specific practices on specific team to capture early feedback and improve it itself. And on the scale phase, we are trying to prepare onboarding materials, because if we're speaking about change management, as Patricia said before, it's important to prepare all this, how we will engage people to change and etc. by conducting trainings, workshops, and etc. that will help us to scale such practices with the whole organization. And the last part is automate, because that truly helps us to simplify some of the routine work and give more time for designers to actually design, innovate, research, and spend more time on creativity. What do you think about the approach and the focus areas that we spoke before?
You shared this with me last week, Farad, and I really loved it. In fact, I was thinking about how my team can use this framework or some derivative thereof to track where, because we also do experiments as well, because we're trying to like start small, test it in different teams, make tweaks, roll it out a little bit more, make tweaks, do it. And so it's like, where are we in that process or in that flow? And this kind of like gave me an idea of like, how do we apply this framework to indicate where a practice or something that we're trying to roll out across the org is in its maturity, right? It's not, I think one of the things that when those experiments happen, it's like you test it on one team and then you're like, okay, everyone needs to do this. But we have over 350 designers and 15 different products and probably about 150 to 200 like teams that those designers are working on, and it will work for some and not for others, and obviously it can't work for everyone. But how do we stress test, and how do we like talk about how things evolve before we're actually ready to like make it big, right? And then move on, because that's a lot of things where people, oh, we've done this too long, let's now move on and try the next meaty problem. And so I really love this, especially in the context of like how you're working, where are the different like areas that you're focusing on as a team. It can be really easy to just get like zoomed into one thing. We're just managing projects, or we're just doing like L&D and growth and development. How do you think about how things mix in the high and low, and how long it takes?
Yeah, thank you. Patricia, like how your like DesignOps approaches look like from your perspective?
Well, I think that you capture it brilliantly. I would say it's assess, understand the context, understand and quantify the pain, and then you start the experimentation, scaling, etc. So I only have an additional layer. Probably you have all understood that I'm a KPI obsessed person. So for me, in the assess part is setting the baseline and understanding what are the meaningful KPIs. And Dominic earlier was saying that the context keeps changing and nothing is fixed, and what's valuable and valid now, it's not in every context, but I would say it's not valid every month. Things can change so fast that a KPI and something that is important today in the next quarter is outdated and it's not relevant because things change fast. So for me, the key part to make this model effective and to be able to prove the value of DesignOps, prove the value of design in the org is having my KPIs. Because without my data, my narrative, it's competing with other narratives. It's storytelling. And designers, I'm not a designer, I'm a researcher by trade, but storytelling is not always the strength. But when you have data, I mean, you may be entitled to your opinion, but not to your facts. So if I saved 60% of the budget, I saved 60% of the budget, and you, CFO, give me the equivalent to reinvest in something else. So that's probably the only difference, because I find that it helps me a lot to win my battles. Well, it seems that I'm going to war, but sometimes it is.
Always.
It is. Sometimes that's
yeah, that's what it is. Totally. Yeah, I'm following a very similar model, but it's really obvious that I came from a design practice perspective and the trade, my trade, I was a designer. And if you think about the agile product development process, build, measure, learn, right? So that is exactly if you think about the double diamond, you go wide to explore what are the problems for the team, and then you kind of narrow down what's the top problem, and then you go, solutioning it, have all kinds of ideas. I kind of treat treat a design operation really like a product development process and everything. And then we talk about experiments, and so that's where we experiment with small team, with a core group of people. Try it out. If it works, it works. And we iterate and get it to a smooth operational level, and then we can spread that knowledge to see, okay, we tried it on one team, can we try it on another team, can we try it on the whole org, and then kind of iterate on that. That's when actually I call it, it's like that's when we operationalize it, and that's the process. It's very standard, in a way it's a standard agile practice approach, but it's very similar to your the circle as well. It's a build, measure, learn, and Perez mentioned a lot of you need to measure it. That's how you learn from it, and also prove value when you measure it. So
and probably, I mean, looking at your double diamond C, I created a similar model where I have an additional point, which is buy-in. If it's change management after the problem has been discovered, I want to make sure that the teams, the leaders, and the business agree on my priority and they are on the same journey. So at the end of the first diamond, all agree, tell me I can proceed and I can start the experiment. When I do the experiment, all agree what is success and all commit. So that helps adoption and change management. So absolutely, yes.
So we have only 2 minutes left. I think for the next session, we will focus more on the skills, and we will try to come up with skill metrics that everyone can contribute to, or use it in their organization, etc. So thank you all for joining. Patricia, Dominic, Z, thank you for spending your time here and providing all your very interesting thoughts on DesignOps as a discipline. If you would like to share your feedback or say something to the community, Dominic, Patricia, Z, please do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for organizing, and I love this format. So it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, same. Thanks for having me here, and it's really lovely to try a new platform and everything, and it's really cool.
Yeah, this was a fun, and always looking forward to talking to a lot of great brains. Thank you.